Okay, budding engineers. This is the solutions for your drawings that you were supposed to do, and no doubt, I'm hoping that you've done them. The only way you're going to learn the symbols, how to dimension, etc., is to do it. And you need to practice it. And also remembering those dimensions for standard dimensions for a metric bolt and all that sort of stuff. You need to practice. Okay, so this is a top view. I gave you step-by-step instructions to follow. As you can see in this drawing here, I asked you to dimension the distance of the hole from each edge. So we had a 200 by 100, and that's dimensioned. And as you can see, you always dimension so that you can read it from top to bottom. And if you're going to turn around to the side, all of these would be read the same way. So if you're going to put a dimension over this side, it would be able to read the same way. And also, salient points. Thick line, okay, and then short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long for a section line. Okay, so we've sectioned through the top. The symbol for a threaded hole, okay, I've done this exercise so you'll learn how to do a tapped hole, okay. Now, this one was M12 by 1, as requested, 1 M12. And 1 which means 12 millimeters by 1 mil pitch of thread. And this was an M8 by 1, and you can see this little symbol. That means we're going 10 deep. Okay, now when we go to looking at the depth, okay, the total depth takes us down to the top of the triangle, and the thread depth, you can see those thread lines there. And we've talked about how to calculate this distance between these two thread lines. If you're not sure about how to do that, ask me a question. But I have gone over that formula, and if you're not sure about it, Ethan Nascar will be able to help you with that. That is the tapped hole, thick circle. See there's actually a break in the image, and it should be up in this first quadrant here. Okay, so see that little break there? That's a thinner line, and there's a break there. Okay, now that is your tapped hole symbol. You need to know that. Also, how to draw a blind hole. Triangle at the bottom, as we talked about, because the drill bit has that shape. So you're asked to do a section view with a blind hole, 12 mils, and an 8 mil hole. So that is your through hole, and that is your blind hole with center lines. Now, just remember that when you have nothing inside the hole, even though you put your thread lines in, you do the hatching over the thread lines, okay? So then we did a section view AA with the bolts in, okay? So we had to make sure we got ourselves a bolt that was long enough. I think I said 35 mils. So I'm assuming that my bolt was long enough, but you might beg to differ. Anyway, I did all the calculations using the information that I have given you on numerous occasions, which is this information here. You need to know this information, okay? So what I did was I took that information and I looked and I went, okay, well, how wide is the top of my bolt's head? Well, we know that the bolt head, we can find that information off our sheet. Okay, so did I actually write it down? I probably didn't, but that's all right. We know that it's the same as, we do know because it's the same as this distance here as well on the nut, okay? And it's 1.8 times the diameter, okay? So when you do your 1.8 times the diameter, you end up with that figure. So if you look here, you can see 1.8D, okay? So when I did that, 1.8 times D gave me 21.6 for the 12, and it gave me I actually didn't put in this top one here, nut 1.8 times 12. Okay, so you need to use each of those formulas. I got the thickness here. Now, what's really annoying is the thickness, which is 8.4 for the 12, is 0.7 for this, but it's 0.8 for the nut. Okay, so you need to learn those figures. Okay, and I've dimensioned all of those, and the washer is 0.25 times the diameter with a width of 2 times the diameter. So you can see I've drawn in a washer, a nut, and you can see our little screw coming through. Now some people did screws that didn't come through, or they had it stopping here. If it stops here, the nut's going to fall off, okay? So you need to be able to screw it on, okay? So that was your blind hole, and I came down, I made sure I came down halfway for my, I've actually done my thread depth to 100 mils. Technically I should have done the actual depth of the hole, which, as we said in this picture here, the depth of the hole is to the top of the triangle, okay? So top of the triangle to the top surface of what you're actually drilling into is the hole depth. Anyway, that is a section view with screws, and this is just an exercise in understanding how our screws, our bolts and our washers and our nuts are dimensioned, okay, standard dimensions. And also the fact that when you're sectioning, you don't section screws, rivets, rods, etc., etc. So, and we don't section hatch over the actual thread lines. Those thread lines there, we don't hatch over them. Okay, so that is that side. And then the second exercise, I asked you to get 2 of the same sections, but this time use 2 10mm bolts to join them together. And you can see here that we have, I've actually said, bolt head is 1.8 times the diameter, and 1.8 times 10 is a nice neat number. That's why I use the 10mm. So we end up with 18. So the bolt head is 18 wide, okay? 18 millimeters across. And then I also said that the bolt was 65, because when I did all my calculations of the thickness, because you actually calculate the length of a bolt, you actually calculate it from the head down to there. Okay, so that's why I made sure I had enough to get all the way through. Okay, so I left actually saying what the size of my bolt was until right at the end, and that wasn't part of the question, but it's a good thing to think about these sorts of things. And then, like I said, the actual nut, okay, thickness is 0.8, and the thickness of the head is 0.7 times the diameter. So that's why that's 7 and that's 8. Okay, washer 0.25 times the diameter, which is 10, gives us 2.5. So I've just dimensioned all my bolts again so that I understand how to do that. So this whole exercise, and also one other salient point, is because there's 2 different materials joined together, hatching lines change directions at 45, and of course, because it's a screw, we don't hatch over those thread lines. So that is the exercise. It's in its entirety. I will take a photo of this board. I expect you obviously to work a lot neater than that. Use a pencil, and note that your outlines usually are thicker or darker. You probably can work darker, but they're thicker than your dimensioning lines, these lines that come down for dimensioning. Okay, so that's another salient point. You're not expected to become expert technical drawers, but in your HSC examination, you will be expected to interpret diagrams and maybe do some section views like we have been practicing. And you have past HSC examination questions, which I've given you, with solutions. So if you've done them, you should be in good stead to understand how to do this. But you need to know a lot of these symbols, and the best way to learn them is to actually do them. Anyway, any questions, please email me. Bye.